So now the hair and the beard texture has been completed. I'm going to focus a little bit on the eyebrows and then highlight some different details, especially around the eyes, for example, and develop that some more. In developing the texture for the eyebrow, again, it's the same thing. You need to look at the photograph and examine the angle of the hairlines as you see them in the photograph and just document that. So here I'm trying to highlight the eye a little bit more. Do take note that I've gone a little bit too hard at this point, and I do take this back later. I've included it in the video because I think it's important to see that not everything is a smooth journey from start to finish. There are times where you may do the wrong thing, and you can see that and then have an effect on it later. So it isn't always a linear process from start to finish. Sometimes mistakes are made along the way, and that's fine. So you can see it's a little bit too harsh, but I've developed the shadow a little bit, and I'm just bringing that out again with the brush. I think the main issue here is the eyelid line is a little bit too dark, and especially for the eyelash area it's a bit too thick. I'm using the eraser pen to take back a little bit of light, but again here I think it's a little bit too much, but I develop it back a little bit later. So what I guess I'm trying to do here is to bring in some darker tones. The image is a little bit flat with the grays that are there, and so what I'm doing is highlighting the darker areas first with the detail of the mechanical pencil. Because the tip is so small at 0.5, I can get a bit more detail going. But then later I'm going to bring back in the 3B pencil and add some darker tones around the side of the face and just bring out those darker grays a little bit more. The more variety you have in your tones, the more three-dimensional it will look. So again, with the 3B pencil, I'm starting to bring out the darker grays as I see them in the photograph, and just bring them out a little bit more so that we have more three-dimensional form to the face. And again, still following the photograph, looking to what I see in the photograph and documenting that in the drawing. It's very important not to make any assumptions about what you think you should do. Be informed by the object you're looking at or the photograph that you're looking at. Another thing I'm doing here as well is blending some of the darker tones into the hair. And now I'm working over the ear and just trying to get out the three-dimensionality there as well. You can see once it gets a little bit darker, things start to pop out a little bit more. And the neck especially is quite light, whereas in the photograph you can see that it's quite dark. So I'm trying to bring that darkness into the what I've mapped out before and the first layer of tonal studies that I put down and blended with a brush. So this is another layer on top. I'll come back with the brush a little bit later and try to blend that into the first layer as well. So I need to be careful with the brush that I don't overdo it, so that I have some of that darker grey still standing out and not blending into the lighter grey, because if I do that then I'm just going to make the image flat again. So it's important that I just focus on the dark areas with the brush, and with the pencil here I'm just highlighting the second mid-tone grey and developing that and blending it into the darker grey a little bit, going over the beard area just to fill some of the little white areas where there's some space in the paper between the lines that I used to create the texture of the beard, and then blending a little bit around the start of those so that it just fades into the hairline a bit better. Here I'm using the putty eraser just to take back a little bit where I feel that it may be a bit too dark. There's some areas inside the ear that are caught by the light, some areas that are caught by the shadow. I'm just trying to bring those out a bit more, that contrast between light and dark, and making sure I have enough types of grey in between to create that 3D form. So I'm very lightly thickening up that area, bridging the gap between some of the whites without colouring in. It's very important that I'm not just colouring in that area, but I'm just adding some tone. Here I'm just highlighting the shirt, bringing back the brush, going in with the putty eraser and bringing back some whites, blending that in again. So here I'm trying to pick out a little bit more white that I can see and bringing it out on the nose where the light hits it quite strongly. When blending, especially with the brush, sometimes you lose the edges a little bit, so you want to bring them back. If you're using something like this, you need to use it very sparingly. If you overdo it, it can look a little bit fake. For the bigger areas where I want to get white back, I'm just dabbing the putty eraser to take off some of the grey. Using the eraser pen on some of the hairline to catch light on the hair. And here we go. I did a little bit more work on the eyes. I thought they were a little bit off, but this is the finished drawing completed.